So we are excited to kick off our hydrogen panel, and joining us on the panel are Dimitar Enchev, who is a managing partner at Post-scriptum Ventures, and we have Dr. Ivyenka, CEO of HyPoint, and then we have Andrew Coors, who is the CEO of Mod-ulus Hydrogen and Steelhead Composites. So welcome to our panelists today.
Hello, everyone.
All right, so let's start with a kind of a big picture in terms of the importance of hydrogen in the context of transition to renewable energy. Why is it so important? And why is it that we can't just simply rely on electrification alone? And it's anybody.
Well, Scott, I've got some visual props actually, so I think I can answer that question with a slide. If I can figure out how to share stuff.
There should be something on the bottom with a arrow up.
There we go. Can you see my screen?
Yep.
All right, good. So why hydrogen? Maybe just to introduce myself, right? I don't know if I was introduced. If you allow me to just say a few words about who we are. So my name is Dimitar. I'm a partner at Post-scriptum, and broadly speaking, we do two things. We do venture capital investment, almost entirely in the energy transition space. And we do, through a fully owned subsidiary, we do large-scale renewable energy development and funding. So we are very deep in the energy transition space, and we have been doing renewables for the last 15 years. So why are we excited about hydrogen, and why is it important? Well, I guess if you look at global CO2 emissions, right, we all know that there is a climate crisis and we need to decarbonize the global economy by 2050 if we are to avoid a disaster. And if you look at where emissions come from, well, only about a quarter come from the power sector. And we know that renewables are now cheap enough and they have enough momentum to decarbonize the electricity sector. But then you've got the rest of emissions and the rest of the global economy that is not quite so easy. And while some part of the transportation sector, like cars, can be electrified, a lot of other parts of the transportation sector you can't really electrify. And then you've got industry and agriculture, which are very, very difficult. So we are excited about hydrogen, and this is where my visual props come in. Everything here that you see with purple can actually be decarbonized with green hydrogen. So that's about 2/3 of the global economy, about 70% of the global emissions can be actually abated using green hydrogen. So this is why we think it's important, and this is why we're really excited about it.
And how about for the other panelists?
So I completely agree with Dimitar, and his expectation is absolutely right. So you can't solve the problem of climate change without zero CO2 emission transportation. And what we see in terms of our activity, so we are building next generation hydrogen fuel cell system specifically for air transportation needs. So we see that existing power sources is not an answer on energy challenge which we have right now with existing power sources. So that is why hydrogen is the most efficient way to to get electricity through the electrochemical reaction, because you know that hydrogen is 4 times higher in energy density in comparison with fossil fuel and with kerosene or gasoline. So that is why this is a very logical path and way how to switch your standard transport to hydrogen, to clean version. Batteries, of course, is an answer, but for few niche like private cars or something like that. But if you're talking about B2B applications, heavy duty trucks or aviation, the hydrogen is only the answer.
I totally agree. And following on Dimitar's visual presentation, I've got a nice slide that that shows this in a nice way, and it does show that that hydrogen fits a space. I don't know if you can see my screen. For long discharge times and high amounts of power, batteries just don't get there. So lithium-ion batteries, for example, definitely have a space, but it doesn't. There's a clear distinction between where hydrogen and fuel cells start making sense, and batteries make sense.
Yep, makes sense. So let's take it to the next level, which is, I think hydrogen is a very generic term, and when we think about it, we want to think in terms of not the elemental aspects, but in terms of the ecosystem, the infrastructure ecosystem. So when we look at the value chain, what are the things that you feel like are taking good shape, right? But there are some other areas where there's some clear gaps or challenges in order for us to have really large-scale hydrogen. Yeah, question is for anybody.
So to my mind, the question regarding infrastructure and hydrogen generation is an overestimated challenge. So actually right now we have a lot of opportunities and technologies, global technologies to obtain hydrogen in any place in the world. I'm living in Palo Alto and I have using every day Toyota Mirai. So it's not a big deal for me to fill up the car once per week. So, and I don't need to get a special certificates or knowledge how. So everyone in the world can do this without any special skills. So that is why, to my mind, in terms of infrastructure, it's just a question of investments, and that is why, for instance, I'm happy that global different governments support that activities, and right now invest a lot of money in hydrogen economy, in infrastructure specifically. And just Boris Johnson and Joe Biden announced that there are plans to invest more than $2.3 trillion in that field. And Plug Power recently also started to work on the infrastructure challenge, and they received $1 billion to do so, and etc. So this is a good movement, and it will happen very, very soon. So as I said, the issue of infrastructure is overestimated by everyone, but this is a question just desire, investments, and etc. We don't have any fundamental limits, to my mind, to explore that infrastructure around the world.
So I'm in the storage business, storage and transport of hydrogen, steelhead composites, and it's been very interesting that to see the number of stopgap measures there are for dealing infrastructure while filling stations come online. There are so many projects we're seeing globally on generation, then transportation, so that there is solutions for maritime applications, for aerospace applications, and for automotive applications, and stationary storage. But it's all happening very quickly, and in the short term, it's going to require transportation of the hydrogen, and eventually it will be distributed electrolysis of water for green electricity, green hydrogen to be produced.
If I can again use my visual props. I asked a colleague today to put together a few slides, so she would be very disappointed if I didn't use them. But this is this is a very well-rounded panel, because we are actually all about making a lot of green hydrogen at a very low cost. And then Alex is all about using that hydrogen, and Andrew is all about storing that hydrogen. Mm-hmm. So you've actually put together a pretty well-rounded panel. But let me try to give you our view. So basically, there is a scale issue, right? You need a lot of renewable energy to make enough green hydrogen to power the global economy. And just to give you an idea of scale, if your average wind farm is about 100 megawatts, this is the largest onshore wind farm, 600 megawatts. This is the project we did a few years ago. This is the largest one in Europe. This is the largest power plant of any kind in the world, the Three Gorges Dam in China. And this thing here is how much hydrogen the world needs by 2050, right? So there is actually a lot of ground to cover, and this is why we're focused on scale and we're focused on cost, right? And we think that one way to make an abundant amount of cheap green hydrogen is by using the world's deserts, which have a fantastic wind solar resource. And this is why we're one of the developers and investors behind the Asian Renewable Energy Hub, which is a 26 gigawatt project, green hydrogen project in the west of Australia, and this is almost entirely for export. This is almost entirely for feeding the Asian market, and it is a project of massive scale. It is, as I showed you before, you've got 3 gorges dam at 22 gigawatts. This is going to be 26 gigawatts when built. So there is a way, there is plenty of space, there is plenty of resource, and there is plenty of renewable energy potential to make more of green hydrogen. But we need to start now, and we need to think in massive scale.
All right. So just kind of leveraging what Dimitar has shared, I'd like to go to Alex to talk about, so once the hydrogen becomes available, how are you then, talk a little bit about your company in terms of using it efficiently to get the most out of it from a density and performance?
So thank you very much for that question. So you should understand that we are the part of powertrain. So we are fuel cell and balance of plant manufacture, which is a crucial part for powertrain. But the question of refilling hydrogen and etc., it will be question of end user. So my responsibility is to provide my customer very, very effective electrochemical reaction to transfer hydrogen chemical energy to electric energy. So this is the main question which we are worried about. But of course, in general, as I said, so it's not a big issue to fill up hydrogen and obtain it in airport infrastructure or for private use, because as Dimitar said, that a lot of right now different technologies to generate hydrogen. It might be from natural gas, it might be green hydrogen, and etc. So I think in general, the most important thing is the cost of hydrogen. That's dramatically influence on total cost of ownership of any flying platform. I mean, in terms of my system and how it will be integrated in aircraft. What we can see that total cost of ownership dollars per flying hour. We can, in comparison with standard combustion engines, for instance, in helicopter, we can achieve 50% reduction. That is a question. That is the answer on the question how hydrogen influence on business model efficiency. So of course, switching to clean energy is very, very important step. But what I would like to emphasize that behind that technologies, you can really achieve very, very good position in business operation. You can decrease your totally decrease your cost of operation of your device. This is a very important step why everyone right now would like to switch to hydrogen.
So Andrew, can you talk about from your perspective on the side, what are you seeing and what are the opportunities, but what are the challenges and any kind of nuances?
Well, there's 3 legs to the stool. There's the generation of the hydrogen, which you have to get the hydrogen somewhere, somehow. And that's breaking apart a hydrocarbon or water or any type of bonding between hydrogen and something else. But then you need to store it. And hydrogen doesn't like its smallest element out there. It doesn't like being treated as a individual element. So having the H2 in a form that is usable, right now the market is using compressed hydrogen storage. These are very high pressure, 5,000 psi, 350 bar to 1,000 psi, 700 bar storage containers. And the way that we do those is we use a aluminum or plastic, and then we reinforce it with carbon fiber, predominantly for lightweight. And also high pressure hydrogen doesn't like steel well. It gets in between the grain boundaries and causes embrittlement. So there are tremendous issues. You're dealing with a high pressure gas that is the smallest element and likes to escape. So this is not a trivial issue, but it's been pretty well vetted. And we've had been able to show some really great, very long duration storage of hydrogen in a compressed form. There are other ways of doing it. There's a solid state storage that's coming along in the next decade or so, we'll see that coming on more and more, as well as liquid hydrogen projects. But right now, it's the dominant form of storage is in compressed hydrogen cylinders.
So when we think about the kind of scale that Dimitar and his team are working on, the kind of storage need that they're gonna need is going to be significant. And do you feel like the kind of containers that you're supplying is sufficient? I know in speaking with others, storage, but also distribution in terms of pipe is another major concern as well, since none of the existing pipe infrastructure for natural gas propane is adequate or sufficient for the exact elemental uniqueness of hydrogen that you talked about.
There's opportunities in the storage and transmission of hydrogen. Our type of tanks is not adequate for the size of the market that Dimitar was talking about. For that, you need a variety of storage media, such as salt caverns, abandoned gas wells, etc., for storing the amount of hydrogen you need. Our type of storage is good for the megawatt hours, or up to 100 megawatt hours of storage, probably. But beyond that, there are media needed. So there's going to be some really great innovations, I think, on the generation, on the hydrogen storage side, as well as the fuel cell side. But we're happy to be here at the infancy with the most relevant.
So Dimitar, let me go back to you again. Just the scale that you guys are working on is just mind-boggling. I mean, I don't think any one of us really truly appreciate not having visually seen. I mean, I think it's one thing to pictorially see it on a Australian continent, but to actually see it, fly over it is going to be a different scale. As you think about the development, I know you guys are in the permitting process and the actual development of the solar PV, power stations. What are the kind of the big, blocks of key milestones you guys have to hit, and the things that kind of worries you at night in terms of, how to actually make this possibility real in terms of feasibility?
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned flying over it. It actually takes half an hour to fly over our site with a helicopter, which is the only way you get there. It is 100 by 70 kilometers, so it is massive scale. And obviously, it's a project for the future, right? We couldn't build it today. We are developing it. We have been developing it for the last 5 years, and we just got the permits for the first 15 gigawatts, as well as major project status from the federal government, meaning Australia recognized that as a strategic industry for the future, right? Which is coming from the Australian government is actually a big milestone. But we're not there yet. We are planning to reach FID in 4 to 5 years, and build over the following 7-8 years, right? So we are sort of betting a little bit on the development of the hydrogen industry, including the electrolyzer industry and capacity being built up there, and a lot of the building blocks of what our project entails, right? Having said that, it is technologically, it's actually not that challenging, right? What Alex and Andrew are doing is actually more complicated than putting together a bunch of wind turbines and solar panels and electrolyzers and making green hydrogen. So the building blocks themselves, they're modular and they're proven technology, right? The world has been making hydrogen using electrolysis for 70 years. There's nothing really special about it. It's just a matter of scaling it. So we are... We need more time, and we are waiting for the industry to develop, but it is something we're very confident will happen in the next few years.
Well, let me kind of dig a little bit in the sense of, again, I know Andrew had mentioned salt mines or salt caves, caverns as an example for large capacitor storage underground. So it's one thing to produce the clean energy to store it on site, but now you got to actually put it into ammonia or liquid carbon for transport from Australia to Japan to the rest of Asia and Southeast Asia. And then once it arrives in those destination countries, how is it then going to get moved, right? That's something that I think Andrew was alluding to, and then eventually downstream and the distribution to the retail. Can you talk about that, and who are the kind of big players, and what are the things that needs to be in place in the next 5-10 years for this to really, make it feasible?
Just a quick answer for me. There is so much innovation that needs to happen and so much opportunity, so much disruption. This is a whole trillion-dollar industry that's going to get built, right? The whole ecosystem is going to be full of opportunity. And there is, I guess, as the old saying goes, there is known unknowns and unknown unknowns, right? I think there are a few things that everyone knows that need to get developed, and there are a few things that will get developed that no one really expects that will be invented. So, but basically, I think our bet for the Asian Renewable Energy Hub is on making green ammonia out of the hydrogen. This is our export vector. We don't see moving hydrogen in large scale arriving within the time frame we're interested in. So we're betting on green ammonia, and green ammonia is already an existing 200 million ton per year market, right? So that's already a massive market that needs decarbonization. And green ammonia itself can be used directly in marine shipping and in agriculture, obviously, as well as in power applications. So the Japanese are betting on ammonia for decarbonization of their power sector. So that is, we see the low-hanging fruit when it comes to utilization of green hydrogen.
So, by the way, what I would like to say regarding our system, I forgot to mention that we are developing a system based on hydrogen and high-temperature membrane, which can contain up to several % of. So we don't care about quality of hydrogen, and one of the potential source of hydrogen and fuel for our system is ammonia. So because it can directly work with this type of fuel cell. So we can mitigate the stage generation hydrogen and transport hydrogen in gas, form, or liquid, because storage that type of hydrogen in a small volume is a challenge. I don't want to say that it's a fundamental thing, but it's challenge. So that is why, like liquid, commonly used liquid fuels like ammonia or methanol, it's one of the answer regarding future aviation.
Great. Andrew?
The transporting bulk hydrogen via ammonia makes a lot of sense, but for applications you can't just use ammonia, so you do have to break that hydrogen off of that nitrogen, and then you can use that hydrogen in a more traditional PEM fuel cell for your automotive or your drone application or your marine application. So these are all working together. There's not going to be one solution that works for all sorts of our decarbonization efforts. But this generation of green hydrogen and the storage of the green hydrogen is one of the critical aspects.
Okay, so we're going to open it up to questions from the investor community. So if you like, go ahead and click on the raise hand button. And while they're doing that, let me continue with my questions as well. In terms of, again, this is for anybody, in terms of some of the kind of macro policy perspectives that are kind of pushing it. So you have, major efforts coming from Europe around hydrogen. You have, the European taxonomy. There's just a lot of things, and of course, capital formation as well. What do you think are kind of the big blocks of legislation? I think, Andrew, you mentioned something in the US side, are going to really help mobilize this so that it becomes a reality and at the scale that we have?
I think a lot of it is happening right now, but I think the main legislative thing that we need to be concerned about is legislators trying to pick what the winning technologies are. And choosing batteries over hydrogen when they're both working in the same direction for decarbonization, or trying to choose which technologies are going to win, rather than legislating for the best green, best clean technologies that are available in the market.
Good point. Any other points?
Well, I fully agree with Andrew's comment. I think what we need is a carbon price on everything, and that let the market solve the cheapest, most efficient way to get there, right? And this is already happening, right? In a lot of places, you have decarbonization targets down to 0 by 2050 or 2060. I think about 60% of the world's economy has already committed to going carbon free. We hope and expect the US to join that club, hopefully this year. But we in the European Union, for example, where we're based, you've already got legislation. The European Parliament earlier this year introduced legislation that is going to apply as soon as 2023. It's going to be a carbon tax at the border, meaning that when someone imports ammonia, they're going to have to pay a carbon tax. And that's all we need, right? We are within strike distance with these super efficient, super large scale hydrogen hubs. We are within striking distance of being competitive with conventional carbon-based sources, right? So if the EU carbon price applies to everything, right? We're going to be competitive, and this is exactly what we need to get the market going in a big way.
So a quick round robin in terms of any final comments or insights that you haven't shared.
So I would like to say thank you, Scott, for organizing the session. It was really pleasant to share our vision on the hydrogen economy in the future in aviation and transportation. So thank you very much, and it was really pleasant to get to know each other in that panel.
It's great meeting you. My final words would be that we talk about this hydrogen economy as if it's a new thing, but the word hydrogen economy was coined in 1970. It's not a new thing. We're just, I think, realizing the importance of using alternative ways of storing and distributing energy for climate and air quality purposes. So here we are 51 years later and talking about it like it's this new amazing thing when it's been the first fuel cell was in 1839. So we're just adopting technology that's been around for a long time.
Mm-hmm. All right.
Yeah.
Any comments?
Well, I'd like to think there's plenty of insight that I haven't shared yet, but I think as with the rest of the panel, we can talk about hydrogen for hours and days probably, and with limited time. So it's probably where I'm going to end it.
Fantastic. So with that, I want to thank our panel.